My sugar daddy asks me for weird favors. His Tinder profile said he was 45, but he looked barely 30. The bio read, looking for a sugar baby, $700 weekly, no sex. As a broke university student, it sounded too good to be true, but I swiped right anyway. It was a match instantly. His message came seconds later. He called me sweetheart and I cringed. But $700 was $700, so I replied with a wink emoji. His name was Jack and he claimed he owned a business, though he never said what kind. He asked for my Venmo and sent the first payment. I stared at the $700 notification for 20 minutes, waiting to wake up from a dream. But it wasn't a dream. He wanted me to do a few favors for him. The first favor was simple: pick up a delivery. He sent me an address and told me to drop it off at his house. He said I'd find a key under a blue flower pot. I grabbed my keys and headed out, my anxiety already starting to creep in. As I was backing out of my driveway, my phone buzzed. He was serious, locked the door both times. Once when I go inside the house, and again when I leave. I thought it was excessive, but I promised him I would. The pickup address was an abandoned house surrounded by nicer homes. A massive man, covered in tattoos, stood in the doorway. He was enormous. He asked if I was here for Jack's stuff and told me to stay put. He came back with a stained cardboard box, about the size of a shoebox. I opened my trunk, not wanting it on my seats. He set it inside and told me to watch out. I didn't ask what that meant, I just drove. Jack's house was a mansion, with stone pillars and perfect green grass. I parked and got out, grabbing the package. I found the key under the blue flower pot, just like he said. The door swung open silently. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me, just as he asked. The thick maroon carpet cushioned my feet. The furniture was all dark wood, incredibly expensive. I set the package on the coffee table and turned to leave. I heard a phone ringing somewhere in the house. I froze. Then my own phone buzzed. It was Jack. Don't answer any calls that aren't from Marvin. I followed the sound to an office and saw the caller ID. It was Jack. I decided not to answer. I left the house, remembering to lock the door again as I left. Something felt very wrong, but I was already $700 richer and Jack had more favors to ask. I drove a BMW to a random park, then switched cars and drove the new one to Jack's house. I met an employee for lunch who gave me a briefcase and told me he would know if I looked inside. On several occasions, he asked me to stay with his guy, Julio, for a certain amount of time. I was just a girl, keeping a guy company, but I was making over $1,000 a week. I started to lose count of the packages. Most recently, Jack asked me to spend the night at his house. I had never seen him in person. He offered $1,000 just to stay in his mansion overnight. I agreed. I lay awake in the dark, listening to the creaks of the huge house. I heard footsteps in the hall, but no one was there. I remembered the rule, lock the doors, but Jack wasn't here to enforce it. I started to realize that I was the one moving the money. I was the courier. The packages, the car switches, the briefcases. I was transporting something, and Jack didn't want to get his hands dirty. He texted me, "Don't look in the trunk." I hadn't planned to, but now I had to. I pulled over on the highway, my heart pounding. The box was still there. I got out of the car. I opened the trunk. The box wasn't heavy, but it was wet at the corners. I peeled back the tape and looked inside. I didn't see cash. I saw something far worse. I was in too deep. My phone buzzed. It was Jack. He knew I had opened it. He said, "I told you not to look. Now you owe me more than just a few favors." I felt my blood run cold. I wasn't just his sugar baby. I was his alibi. I was the one seen picking things up, dropping things off. I was the one who had left fingerprints on the key. He had chosen me for a reason. I realized there was no sugar daddy. Jack was just a voice on the phone. The real Jack was in the shadows, and I was just a disposable asset. I had traded my safety for a few $1,000s. He told me to stay again. He said if I left, he'd send Julio to pick me up. I was trapped in a beautiful cage. I had to think of a way out before the sun came up. I could call the police. But what would I say? I was making thousands of dollars driving mysterious boxes around town. I was as guilty as he was. I had to make a choice. I decided to run. I unlocked the door, left the key under the pot, and drove straight home. I blocked Jack's number. The money was gone, but my freedom was worth more. I never heard from him again.